Stu here with Raid Shadow Legends to go over the update 3.0 highlights. That's right, the Doom Tower, new champions, revised artifacts, champion fragments that we're only going to get in the Doom Tower, and it's supposed to come the first part of December. So right away, we've got a couple weeks left. If that, and this should be out. You know they wouldn't come out with this information without it being ready. So this stuff is ready to go. There's a lot of information here. They talk about the Doom Tower, the silver keys, the gold keys. We're going to have enough to do normal and hard before it resets. And you want to do the secret floors because that's where you get your fragments for these other champions. And it's the only place you can get fragments, and it's the only place you can summon these champions, nowhere else. It goes on further to talk about the gold and the silver keys. You'll get 10 a day at reset, plus you'll get more throughout the day by doing activities in the game, just like we do now to get additional keys for faction wars. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I hope it's easy. I hope we can just do it smoothly. Now it says the secret rooms will pose an additional challenge as they require specific conditions to be met. We've seen what those conditions are in the last video we did. And then whenever we do those, look at these. I mean, it looks beautiful. Here are the normal waves. We're going to have the normal waves that we always talked about. Then we have the boss stages, and then we have the secret floors that we saw. Now onto the rewards part. Rewards that cannot be farmed again until the Void Tower resets. So we're going to get a reward when we beat it, and then at the end of the month, 30 days, it's going to reset. We can go back through it and get those first time clear rewards. Beating a boss floor will reward you with materials for Artifact Forge, and each boss will reward materials for a specific set. Each boss we beat will give us materials for the Forge to make these artifacts, and each boss will reward materials for a specific artifact. And we can go back through and fight those bosses. We're going to get a little additional keys to do that, to go back through there and get pieces of these. I don't know how many throughout the month, but we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But each of the bosses here, and here are the names for them, we're going to have new artifact sets that we can make at the Forge. Increase attack of 15% with 5% crit. Not bad. This one is resistance of 40 with a 2-turn immunity on a 4 set piece. This is a 2 set piece. I don't mind this one. The attack with the crit is pretty nice. This though, resistance of 40 and immunity for 2 turns on a 4-piece set is kind of weird because you're taking away a lot of resistance. This one gives you critical damage of 30% and a 20% to deal a critical hit instead of a weak hit. When you attack the strong affinity, you have a 35% chance to do a weak hit, which means you won't critical hit, you won't apply debuffs. This says 20% chance to deal a critical hit instead. Now is that offsetting? So when we attack something that's a strong affinity, instead of a 35% chance to weak hit, are we only going to have a 15% with this on? I don't know exactly how this is going to work. And then when we crit hit, we're going to apply the debuff. That's good. We'll have to see how this set works out. Sounds actually pretty good for going through content with the weak affinity if you wanted to get through content with it. This new Frost set here is a 15% chance to resist freeze with a 10% chance to place freeze on the attacker, and then we can load this up to a 45% chance to resist freeze and a 30% chance to freeze the attacker. Now remember, these are artifact sets. They don't go off of resist and accuracy, so you'll have a flat 45% chance to resist the freeze. You don't have to worry about getting resistance or accuracy or anything with this. You're going to apply that at a 30% chance to freeze them, and you'll have a 45% chance to resist the freeze. In addition to the materials, you will win champion fragments by completing secret rooms. Remember, you can only get these rewards once per cycle, once per reset of the Doom Tower. We don't know how many fragments we're going to be able to get yet for beating each of those or how long it's going to take. Once we do it the first time, then we'll be able to gauge how many months is it going to take to be able to get these champions. But these are some pretty sweet champions. I'm not going to read over their names and embarrass myself. You can see them here. I'll talk about their abilities. So Thea the Tomb Angel. Okay, that's the first one's for free, guys. Knight's Revenant here. Attacks 2 times at random. Has a chance to place Hex debuff on somebody. This debuff cannot be resisted. Each critical hit decreases the cooldown of Not of This World. Not of This World puts Perfect Veil on her for 3 turns and grants an additional turn. So at least we'll get that. Keep going. She gets an additional turn. Not bad there. Attacks all enemies. Damage increased by 50% for each Hex debuff up there, up to a max of 300% additional damage. That's crazy. 300%. I think the highest, what do we have, like 50% additional damage? When we talk about additional damage, overall damage, that's nuts. When we talk about additional critical damage like we have on Richtof the Bold, it's not that big of a deal. But when we talk about doing it this much, multiplying the damage by 300%, this will be the biggest hit we've ever seen in this game, and it is AoE. Removes all Hex debuffs from all enemies after this. But she's the only person we know that can apply Hex, and she can only do it on her A1, 2 targets at random. So we shouldn't have that many out there. 1 turn, if we get lucky, 2 random targets get it. Next one, 2 random targets get it. So if we have 4 up there, I mean, that'd be 200% already. I don't know. It's going to be hard to get that many out there until we get more champions that can apply Hex, but it's a really huge move. And then she has here a passive 50% chance to place True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn when an enemy loses 30% or more of their max HP in a single hit. Wow, that's easy to do as well. She's going to be pretty nice. So remember, we can only get these from fragments that we get from the Doom Tower. It's going to take time to get these. This Orc Legendary here attacks 1 enemy. We've got a chance to apply a leech, and then we've got also a chance for a leech debuff on 2 random enemies if this champion has full HP. Attack 1 enemy has a 60% chance of stealing 2 random buffs from them. Also a 60% chance to decrease the turn meter by 50%. Steals 50% of the turn meter max turn meter instead if this champion has full HP. So it does max turn meter instead. These look pretty good. I mean, it's a legendary champion. He should be good. This one I really like. Attacks all enemies 2 times. Each hit has a chance to place decreased defense on all enemies for 2 turns. The first hit on each target also has a chance to decrease the turn meter by 10%. The second hit has a chance to put up a weaken debuff. So each hit has a chance to decrease defense, and then the first hit has a chance to decrease turn meter. It's only by 10%. Then the second hit has a chance to put up a weaken. And he's attacking, doing damage to all enemies 2 times. That's pretty good. I think that'll be fun. I don't know. We'll have to see what kind of damage he's going to do. Whenever 4 or more buffs are placed on the enemy team in a single turn, place a shield buff on the champion equal to 15% of his max HP. Now, if you don't know, these champions that we're getting from the Doom Tower, not these 2. Well, this one we've seen before. We've had her up before. She looks really cool. I haven't seen this guy, I don't think, before, but this one was on Battle Pass Season 2. The Battle Pass advertisement, you saw Whirlum with the Battle Pass kind of going behind him. We saw this guy with the Battle Pass Season 2 going behind him a long, long time ago. So Battle Pass Season 2 is stripped of these champions right here. If we ever do get another one, it's going to be with different champions. So they've gone ahead and thrown them in here, but they were really cool champions, so I'm glad they did. When we read over what all these could do, it was pretty. This Infernal Golem is really good. And then I think there was a couple other rares in there too. So I guess maybe they're going to bring them out some other time. So let's go over this one legendary here. Attacks 1 enemy, puts a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of this champion's max HP. Value increases by 1% for each poison debuff on the target. Now there's a lot of reading on a lot of this stuff. So if you want to read over and pause and mute me, you can. Attacks all enemies. We've got a chance to decrease the turn meter by 15% if they're under 1 poison. Also, if they're under 2 poison, decrease speed. And I think if they're under another poison, we get a chance to place a stun on enemies under 3 or more poisons. So there's a lot. Instantly activates this ability if you are revived by Elemental Conjurer. So Elemental Conjurer is right down here. We'll talk about this person in a little bit. They'll be able to bring these guys back to life. They do have some pretty cool synergy. I don't think that they're like be all end all. It's going to break the game if somebody else is able to get these champions before you are through the Doom Tower. But it was pretty interesting. Here on this skill, we do a strengthen buff for 2 turns and ally protect for 2 turns on probably a 4-turn cooldown. Looks like it's going to be 5, probably go down to a 4-turn. When attacked, has a 50% chance to place a poison debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. When an ally is attacked while under strengthen buff, has a chance to place a provoke debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Increase this champion's max HP by 5% when an enemy receives damage from poison debuff placed by this champion. Whenever an enemy receives a damage from poison debuff placed by this champion, also decrease their max HP by 5%. Increase ally resistance in all battles by 80. That's a good aura as well on him. The Royal Arc Mage. I remember this guy, he had a lot of buffs, I think, and I was talking about using him with Seer instead of Mausoleum Mage. Attacks when enemy, fills this champion's turn meter by 10%, fills the turn meter by 20% if this attack is critical. That's on his A1. That's really good to get turns. He's Banner Lord. Attack 1 enemy, also attacks all enemies if the first attack is critical. Each hit has a 50% chance to place a stun debuff for 1 turn after attacking. Decrease the turn meter of each enemy without a stun by 20%. That goes down to a 3-turn cooldown. It's going to be really good. Places a increased speed buff, increased crit buff, and an increased critical damage buff for 2 turns. This is the one I was talking about with Seer, going through waves. We get all these, we get 3 different buffs up, just like Mausoleum Mage, and we can just really wreak havoc. Immune to turn meter decrease effects, and increase ally speed and arena by 17%. He's an epic champion, yeah. So he should be pretty fun to play. But this one I really like. This Infernal Golem, when I read through him months and months ago, seemed like he could do a lot. 50% chance to place a 30% decreased crit rate debuff for 2 turns on his A1. I don't care about that. Attacks all enemies. Has a 20% chance to place an HP burn debuff for 2 turns. This chance to place the debuff increases by 20% for each alive enemy. So already, if there's a lot of enemies out there, you're going to have a 100% chance. It's on a 3-turn cooldown already to place an AoE HP burn. Attacks all enemies, A3, has a 50% chance to increase the cooldown of all skills by 2 turns on enemies under HP burn. Also places a shield buff equal to 20% of this champion's max HP on all allies for 2 turns. Activates this if we're revived by Elemental Conjurer. So already we're able to, as long as there's enough enemies out there, and it doesn't take many, we'll have a 100% chance to apply this on a full group, HP burn, on a low cooldown, and we're doing damage. We're going to do damage again, and we're going to have a chance to set their skills down by 2 turns on each enemy under HP burn, and then place an HP shield of 20% of his max HP on all of our allies. That's really good. Plus, there's more. Has a 10% chance to place a fear debuff on an enemy for 1 turn whenever they receive damage from HP burn debuff placed on themselves. So anytime they get an HP burn, it's a small chance, but a chance to place fear on them, that's pretty damn good. This epic is nice. I'm ready to play that epic champion. So here's the Elemental Conjurer. Let's see if it's worth having this champion. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance to place a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. A2 has a 75% chance of remove all buffs from the enemies. Probably going to be 100%. Also has a chance to place a weaken debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. So that one's just going to remove all buffs and then place a weaken. Okay, not bad. It's something, right? It's a little bit different than Madam Cirrus. Revive a dead ally with 50% HP, then fill their turn meter by 50%. We'll then also place block debuffs buff on them for 2 turns. We'll also revive Infernal Golem and Euros the Soul Cage with 30% HP and are on the same team and not the target of the skill. We'll then also fill their turn meter by 30% after reviving. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, this champion, all in all, just to have it there to revive them doesn't sound that amazing by itself. But maybe if we can pop it off and bring them back to life and get them to do, even still, it just doesn't sound that great. We'll have to see how it plays out. There's going to be rankings for this as well. I don't know how it's going to work out, but as long as you complete 10 floors, you're going to be included in the rankings. They're separated into global and clan. And then at the end of the month, they're going to show us like who had the most points for this. There's no reward so far that I can see from here, but at least we're going to have something to compete about for the ranking system. Now, these new champions are the champions that we're going to see at Christmas. This is the Christmas Fusion champion. We've already had this verified and confirmed. It's going to be the old style Fusion where you go use your epic champions, your rares, and then we're going to make this champion right here. A little bit different. We'll have to talk about what she can do, and then we've got these other, they didn't say what these champions are, what the other ones are going to come from, but that one was for Christmas, so I guess this is Grinch, right? This looks like the Grinch, so I guess all these are probably going to be at Christmas, and then we've got some artifact sets to talk about there. So this one here that we're going to get for the Fusion at Christmas, attack one enemy, has a chance to place Veil buff on a random ally, places a 60% increased defense buff and continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies under a freeze debuff. Places a weaken debuff for 2 turns on all enemies under a freeze debuff. So only then attacks enemies under a freeze debuff. That's it. Attacks 5 times at random. Each hit has a 30% chance to place a freeze debuff for 1 turn. Has a 100% chance to place the freeze debuff on enemies that receive 2 hits. All right. Whenever an enemy places a freeze debuff on an ally, has a 20% chance to steal the freeze debuff and place it on this champion instead. Has a 25% chance to fill this champion's turn meter by 25% every time they receive a freeze debuff. Has a 35% chance to remove any freeze debuff from this champion at the start of each turn. If there are multiple champions in the team with this skill, only one will activate. I don't know. It's kind of what she's going to be our Fusion for Christmas. I don't know. You let me know how this girl's going to work out and if she's going to be amazing somewhere or not. I'm not seeing it yet. I see that we get the increased defense. We get the continuous heal buffs. The rest of this is very weird to me. So we'll have to see how it works out. I do like the aura, of course. Increased ally resistance by 80% everywhere is very nice. A legendary Void Barbarian attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a chance to place a freeze debuff. Will ignore shield buffs if there are 1 or more enemies under freeze debuff. Will also ignore block damage buffs if there are 2 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. Will also ignore 30% of the target's defense if there are 3 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. Yeah, these are going to be Christmas. They're all talking about freezing. So you're going to slow them down, you're going to freeze them, and then you're going to steal their turn meter by 100%. That is talk about like locking somebody up. That's crazy on a 3-turn cooldown. Attacks one enemy, has a chance to decrease speed for 3 turns. chance to place a freeze debuff, and then steal 100% of the target's turn meter and place an increased speed buff on this champion for 3 turns on probably a 3-turn cooldown. That's nuts. Talk about like rooting somebody down. You're freezing them, you're stealing their turn meter, and then you're slowing them down as well. And you're increasing this guy's speed plus stealing whatever turn meter they had for him to do this again to somebody else. That's pretty wild. Attacks one enemy 3 times. If the target is under a freeze debuff, remove the debuff after attacking and place it on all enemies except the initial target. Will also attacks all enemies except the initial target after the 3rd hit. Wow, that one sounds fun. I like this ability. We'll have to try. We'll have to try this guy out. I wonder how we're gonna. I guess he's just gonna be added to the pool, and we'll be able to try to summon him after Christmas. Decrease the damage this champion receives by 10%. Increase the damage this champion inflicts by 10% if there are 1 or more enemies under freeze debuffs. Increase this champion's speed by 15 and resistance by 50 if there are 2 or more enemies under freeze debuff. Places an unkillable buff on this champion for 2 turns whenever there are 3 enemies under a freeze debuff. Okay, there's a cooldown on it, but still very nice. Increase attack. Whoa, increase ally attack in Doom Tower by 43%. Pretty interesting. All right, who do we have? Demon Spawn Force. We've only got a few more, and then we'll go over the artifacts, and we'll be done. Attacks one enemy, has a chance to decrease the duration of any random buff on the target if they're under HP burn. Also has a chance to decrease the target's turn meter if they are under a freeze debuff. Place a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn and a 25% strengthen for 2 turns. On a long cooldown, this is an epic support. Doesn't sound that great so far. Attacks all enemies. We've got a chance to place a freeze debuff for 1 turn on enemies whose attack is higher than their defense. Has a chance to place a burn if their defense is equal or higher than their attack. Okay, I like the freeze part. If their attack is higher than their defense, we can get a freeze going on. That's pretty nice because it looks like it's probably going to be 100% chance to apply that. Heals all allies by 5% of their max HP every time an enemy under HP burn debuff gets a turn. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 10% every time an enemy under freeze. Wow, you can really start freezing and locking some people up with some of these champions. Increase ally defense by 25%. Here is the Grinch. The Grunch. Killjoy. I like him. I bet he's going to look like a really scary Grinch out there. Attack one enemy, has a 40% chance to place a block buffs debuff from 1 turn. Attacks all enemies. Has a 50% chance to place a bomb debuff. Uh-oh, we're talking about bombs here. That detonates after 1 turn. This is an epic, and he's actually placing a bomb that detonates after 1 turn. We're probably not going to have a 100% chance to apply, but that's pretty insane considering War Mother and the rest have a really long turn to blow up their bombs. Removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a 15% continuous heal buff for 1 turn on each ally for every debuff removed. I like that too, but it seems like that's going to be on a long cooldown. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 10% whenever a bomb debuff detonates on an enemy. Faction Wars. Increase ally defense in Faction Wars by 30%. I don't know, I like those guys. These seem pretty fun, but we're not going to see these till Christmas. Keep that in mind, and this one right here is the Christmas Fusion Champion. Retaliation moved up to 35% from 25 chance to counterattack. This on a Skull Crown, and you can't remove her unkillable. It gets really annoying when she keeps counterattacking. Regeneration moved up to 15% from 10. Then we've got Toxic here up to 75% from 50 to apply the poison. Reflex set up to 40% from 30, which is really nice on somebody like Bad Alcazar who only has 1 move with a cooldown. That way it always goes to this. This can make a comeback, maybe in some comps. Avenging here up to 45%. Again, this one says no damage penalty. So whenever you counterattack, you only do 75% of your max damage back to them. It's nerfed by 25% when you counterattack, but this is saying that it's not. You're going to do 100% of the damage back to them. And whenever you get critical hit, you'll counterattack at a 45% chance. That's pretty high. That's going to be annoying in Arena, really annoying. Destroy moved up to 40 from 30. Cursed we have up to 75% from 50. Curing set, nobody uses this set. I don't know how it's going to work out, but we moved up to a 20% chance from 10 for bonus heals. That's it, everybody. Let me know your thoughts down below. That was a lot of stuff to go through. I've been talking all night long. I hope you enjoyed it. This is right around the corner. I'm really excited to see all of this. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you on a video soon.